to say welcome to this tour we're doing today of the Broadway district here in beautiful Saskatoon, Saskatchewan here in Canada on the beautiful prairies of our nation. It is a gorgeous blue sky day today. It's 19 degrees Celsius. That's about 66 Fahrenheit or so for my friends from America who might be watching this. And I'm really excited to do this little bit of a historic cultural walk around this historic district really of Saskatoon. It is a beautiful, when I'm walking through this in the original live here with you, it is an absolutely beautiful Tuesday. So if you're here for that walk around the Nutana area and the cultural district of Broadway here in Saskatoon, you come to the right place. Let me switch the camera around and show you the beauty of the South Saskatchewan River that I'm looking at right now as I am on Saskatchewan Crescent here this beautiful day. I've got a couple things I want to share with you just to set the scenery, and then we'll be off and on our proper tour. For those of you who are joining me on the original live stream of this in the chat, it's great to see you. Hello. For those of you who are going to be jumping in later on the repeat, I'm so glad you're here, and I hope that this walk around in the downtown area or the Broadway area is great. We're looking at the downtown area. If you're with me a couple days ago, I did a walking tour of the river landing, which is right there across the river. You're looking at the historic Victoria Street Bridge, or the replica of the historic Victoria Street Bridge. We'll talk a little bit more about the history of Saskatoon in a moment, but safe to say that it was originally opened in 1907, and then in 2016 it was torn down after being closed in 2010 just due to it was not safe anymore, safety concerns and deterioration, and then it was rebuilt and reopened again in 2018. Almost exactly the same, a little bit wider, but a beautiful view nonetheless of downtown Saskatoon, Victoria Street Bridge. Let's turn around, start our walking tour into Broadway, and have a great day together as we explore this city on the river in the Prairies. I'm just going to switch around right now and we're going to walk up East Lake Avenue. It's going to be our shortcut today to get up to the Broadway district. And I'll tell you a little bit about as we wander up. Oh, such a beautiful day. A couple days ago it was windy beyond measure, and now it's absolutely just a gorgeous, gorgeous day. So you guys get a treat as we walk with the beautiful blue skies. It is spring here, late spring in Saskatoon. It is the beginning of June. It's that perfect time between when the snow melts, the roads get cleaned up, and the warmth starts to hit, but the mosquitoes are not out yet. And so it's probably one of the most pleasant times of the year to be out wandering in the city of Saskatoon. The city of Saskatoon began as a temperance colony founded by a Methodist minister from Toronto in the late 1880s. He journeyed here, met with Chief Whitecap of the North Dakota Nation, and established the town of Saskatoon. As well, across the river here where we are now was the town of Nutana, and back where we did the river landing walk the other day was the town of Riversdale, and all those towns amalgamated in 1906 to become the city of Saskatoon with just over 4,000 people. And so the street that we're walking on now here in this district is one of the oldest areas in the city, and I'm excited to walk there with you. Saskatoon is really, in the summertime, a walking city. It's a beautiful place to be able to get from point to point on your feet. Yes, you can take an Uber. Yes, you can drive around. Yes, you can cycle. There's an incredible amount of cycling trails, but it is a place that you can walk with relative ease as well. Now, in the winter, obviously, we're having snow here for 6 to 7 months of the year. However, it's still, even at that time, got a great transit system and a beautiful place to be doing a little bit of a walk. We've got another block to go as we come up here. I want to start our tour as well with a little bit of a quote that I found about this area. It's by a guy named Craig Silifat, who wrote an article a couple of years ago about this area that we're going to be walking in, because I think it summarizes really nicely why I've chosen to put this tour together. He says this: to walk down Broadway Avenue here in Saskatoon is to wander into the bright heart of a community. Sure, there are stores and theaters and bars and all manner of buildings, and historical and modern, but it's the people that make Broadway what it is. The street is alive with spirit and ideas. The backing track of live music wafting down the street. It's intoxicating. It's not only the soul of Nutana, arguably, says the author, of Saskatoon. This is the Broadway Avenue district. Now, if we came down here on a weeknight, you'd have a completely different experience. It's just coming up on noon on a weekday, on a Tuesday. So we'll start to see the lunch crowd soon. Lots of always activity. Building across the way at the Broadway Roastery. It's very much an outside in the summertime. When the summer hits here, very much an outside patio culture, especially in this area of town. One of the things I like are the little extras that they've done here to make Broadway a little more alive, placing the nice bright red benches, bright red advertising for what's coming up in the city, and even the places you lock your bikes have got a little touch of Broadway on them. See the background, a couple of the different options you have to go on scooters. Relatively new addition here to the community to get around, as well as biking and all the rest. So we take a look across at the Victoria School. We'll journey over there and take a peek at that in a moment. Now, I mentioned that the three original communities here that made up the city of Saskatoon were Riversdale, were Saskatoon proper across the river, and Nutana, which is where we are now. This whole area has been called the Paris of the Prairies by some. Now, we need to go back to the settlement of Nutana, which became a village back in 1903, and Broadway Avenue here was its economic, commercial thoroughfare. In fact, Broadway took its name because it was so wide that you could do a U-turn with a team of horses without having to do a circle around the block. Thus the name Broadway. Sorts of little eclectic stores still in the mix here now. There were shops and businesses, and as I mentioned, the city's first elementary school, Victoria School, right here across the street. It was in 1906, as I mentioned, Nutana joined with the other settlements of Riversdale and Saskatoon. Broadway at that point kind of became supplanted by the downtown Saskatoon as the major commercial street, but remained a main drag on the east side of the city well into the 1950s. And you can see even some of the signs, like St. John's Music, have that older 50s, 60s feel to them. Broadway Bridge, which we were by when we started out, was opened in November of 1932, connecting the community to the downtown area. Before that, the Victoria Street Bridge was the main one you'd take as you crossed over. Walk across the street here and take a little look at the school that we just saw. We're at the corner now of Broadway and 11th Street, and there's some history to this too that I'll walk into in just a moment, but for now let's take a little peek at Victoria School. It's a French immersion school, so École Victoria. Gazebo meets us at the entrance. More of those classic Broadway benches. So this school was constructed in 1909. Originally known as Victoria School, for many years it offered both English and French immersion programs. And then in 2020-21, the last of the English-only classes departed, and it became solely a French immersion school. Bronze statues are a staple of the city of Saskatoon. You'll find them everywhere. We were on our tour of the university campus a few days ago, and we saw Farley Mowat and his dog. This is a little school child heading off to class. Here's Victoria School with hers. And turn of the century brick architecture here. So over time, Broadway started to decline, as all communities do. We talked on our Rivers Landing tour, live stream tour, a couple of days ago about how there's that initial growth and vibrancy. Then there's a decline that eventually happens, and hopefully you get to a refreshing of a neighborhood. That's exactly the pattern that Broadway took. By the mid-80s, by the mid-1980s, things were really dire here. This street was really run down, and people took their money and their patronage and moved to other spots within the city of Saskatoon. But in 1986, that started to change, and that curve swung the other way. Merchants in the area banded together and worked with the city to refurbish the street, largely creating the modern Broadway Avenue that we have today. It's got this balance now today of this between a vibrant business area and eclectic neighborhood, arts and music. Really are at the core of what's happening. Now before us is the Broadway Theatre. You can see the historic sign there. This theatre is Canada's only community-owned, non-profit cinema. It specializes in showing classic or notable older films, as opposed to, reruns and first-time showings. It opened in December of 1946. It became quickly, as you can imagine, the entertainment destination during the post-World War II years. Now I'm going to walk across the street so we can get a look at it from a wider vantage point. Again, patio culture here. Soon will be filled with people, I'm sure, as the day unwinds. You can see some of that street upkeep by the community cleaners that are out today, picking up garbage, keeping the place immaculate. Dave and Peggy in the live chat are saying they haven't been here in a long time and it's really changed. Definitely, definitely. I just want to get over to the brewery over there and grab a little sandwich or something on the patio, pet-friendly patio. There's orange and yellow patio shades. One thing that could do with some upkeep is the speed with which these crossing lights work. I'm still waiting for the crossing lights that I pushed, what, 30 seconds ago to kick in. If you have any questions about this area or Saskatoon as a city and you're in the live original chat, please leave those questions there and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can leave your questions below in the comments and I will, again, get to them as soon as I see them. just fairly quickly for me. Tina asks, where does the word Saskatoon come from, or what's its meaning? So Saskatoon is a First Nations, I believe, Cree word that has to do with the Saskatoon berries, the little red berries that are in the area. And it takes its name from those. That's where it comes from. A nod to the Cree First Nations word, but also the delectable Saskatoon berries. If you've ever had Saskatoon berry pie, you know what I'm talking about. There's some shots there with Broadway across the way. Some more of the little eclectic shops. We'll get another shot of that Broadway when the trees aren't in the way. Old historic clock. Good view of the Broadway Theatre across the way there. Now, following the neighborhood's decline that kind of started in the 50s, the theatre fell into really disrepute. And by the 70s, it actually become an adult-only theatre. Until about 1983, when it was purchased again. There's a better shot. Purchased again and fully restored. I can zoom in just a little bit for you. It was restored as an art, what was I saying? It was restored as art and film cinema and live performance venue after that, at that time. And then, in August, zoom back out, August of '93, it abruptly closed. And after some significant community fundraising, it was purchased by Friends of Broadway Theatre, given nonprofit status, as I mentioned at the beginning, and was renovated and reopened in '93, resuming its previous role. Some more of the art. If you were with me a couple days ago on 20th, we saw the buffalo art. This is a very similar piece.
Hello.
This one called Carousel. Across the way at the end, when the bus passes, we'll see one of the historic buildings, and many of these historic buildings have people still living in them. And then down below becomes something of commercial real estate. And on the bottom there is a junior cafe. It used to be a Starbucks, and very busy Starbucks. And one of the reasons it's not anymore, apparently, is because the city couldn't change out the water pressure at that place. And the new Starbucks, roaster stations, and coffee machines needed a higher pressure. The city wasn't able to provide without major renovations, and so Starbucks left that building and now has another neighborhood cafe in it. So that was an interesting little story. We're going to walk one more block down to Broadway Cafe, and it's another spot if you're in the Saskatoon area, in this area, that you'll want to definitely stop by and spend some time at. People in the original chat are just talking about Saskatoon berries that we got onto. And then somebody said, did you know that the Broadway Theatre, oh, did I watch the Star Wars premiere in that Broadway Theatre back in 1977? No, I didn't. At that time, I actually wasn't living here in Saskatoon. I was on Vancouver Island with my family. In Parksville, where I actually live now, for a few years before we moved back. But I did see the Star Wars movie downtown, The Return of the Jedi, downtown in the early 80s at the Roxy Theatre down there, which I think I pointed out the other day when we were on the 20th Street tour. So this is the Broadway Cafe. For over 30 years, It's been a 50s style diner, serving some delicious burgers and fries and all-day breakfast, milkshakes, soups, and more. Let's take a little peek inside. You have to be very quick though. You can see the 50s diner appeal. There's Elvis on the walls. And the lighting is reflecting that. Whoops, hello. So if you have the chance to get to Saskatoon, it's definitely one of the spots that you want to take a moment to go into and spend some time at. So many great options here for food, for beverage, and culture here in Saskatoon. It's no wonder it's one of the main concentrations of people. The Jazz Festival will be happening here shortly, and again, the Jazz Festival is a place that uses the venues here on Broadway. Just like these low shots, just to capture some of the beauty of the arts. Sometimes when we walk around the community, we don't stop, look at different angles and see some of the beauty of the architecture. And that definitely comes out in these buildings here. So many of them original buildings from back in the early 1900s. So if you're just popping in a live stream, great to see you. My name's Dan King. If we haven't met before, you're welcome. If we have, great to see you again. We're just in the Broadway community here in Saskatoon and the Nutana area of town. Taking a bit of a walk around. We've been down the main street for about 3 blocks. We've seen some historic sites already. Talked a little bit of the history and the culture here. I think I'm swing it around because, as it was mentioned at the beginning, it's not about the music and the food and the buildings as much as it's about the people. And the people here in the Nutana area live in some beautiful period houses. And I want to walk down this street here around 10th Street and show you a few of those. Big, I see your comment, you're right, forgot that. So we're going to take a turn, we're going to walk down 10th Street and look at some of these period houses. And as we do, just want to let you know that if you're enjoying these, please leave a comment below and a thumbs up on it. Always helps. Subscribe if you haven't and you like these kind of tours. I'll be doing them regularly as we move into the summer here. In fact, this next Saturday I'll be in Vancouver Island again. I'll be in the community of Balcombe Beach at their annual Father's Day car show with over 500 cars. At one point in history, Oprah called it one of her favorite Father's Day events. And the top 10 Father's Day events, so if you want to join me for that, especially if you're a car buff and you are into those kind of things. Also, if you liked it today and you didn't want to just leave a thumbs up and a comment, and maybe a subscription if you're not already, you can also leave a tip. You can go to my Buy Me a Coffee, which is listed in the description down below, and you can. The nice thing about that is you will get on an email list if you do that on Buy Me a Coffee. It will let me notify you about upcoming series, upcoming tours, and the like. And so that's something you might want to miss. Anyway, that was the commercial. Let's turn it back around and continue our walkabout down 10th, looking at some of these beautiful period homes. And I just want to catch up with some of the live stream comments. Some people here from New Zealand. Have I ever been to Bartarni? I haven't, Tina. Thank you for that question. You tell me a little bit about it in the chat and I'll take a look. So these are all period houses that are here. These are built through the early 1900s through to the early 50s, depending on the block, and have that very little renovation other than the obvious upkeep that has to happen on them over the years. And you really get, as we just walk, we're not even a block off of Broadway now. We've already got that sense of, we've left the busyness and walked into a real peaceful community full of vibrancy. And so you can see that period housing with the vibrant front door on it. And then just to the right of it's a property that's newer. So you got that new and that old. It's got a very West Coast feel to it with the stained cedar wood and the black with the, that's very much of Vancouver Island, BC type looking home. And then right back to the period housing. And of course you've got the Grace Westminster United Church, which was established in the, I believe if memory serves right, in the 20s. And it was a cornerstone. I might be proved wrong on that. Let's see if I can see the plaque in just a moment. Served it as a gathering point for the community for the early 1900s. 1927, Grace United Church, yes. Great picture of it there. Again, so much of Saskatoon, and you're with me, if you're with me on the university campus tour, you know this, has that architecture. Dave and Peggy in the live chat mentioned that her mom attended this church back in the day. Beautiful. Speaking of peaceful, off the street, these guys have done a great job with their front yard. The flowers, the windmills. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I feel like there's not a lot of places in Canada where you still have mailmen, mail postal workers who are walking. But here you do in Nutana. Most places have the neighborhood boxes, but he's still doing the footpath here every day, bringing the mail. Sleet, literally, that old saying about whether it's sleet or snow or rain or what have you. That's literally what happens here. One more block of these houses. I'm gonna take a right and we'll head back down actually to the Victoria Street Bridge that we were looking at when we began our tour. Take a peek there. We'll walk across the street here and get a different vantage point for you. You can see the street. If we get out in the middle, get a good shot of that. The street's just trees like a cathedral roof over these streets. And that speaks to the longevity of this community, doesn't it, as well? Old houses. These are the people who came together and bought the Broadway Theatre, restored it. This is the heart of the community. And you can see even by some of the colors, I feel like, of these houses, the yellows, vibrant blues and purples. These are creative people who love where they live and the homes that they have. Mature trees. I'm told that these are maple trees, but a different type of maple than we would have back home on Vancouver Island. I'm going blurry, someone says in the live. Well, there's nothing I can do about that, but thanks for letting me know. I'll just have to wait till I get to a stronger signal. It's one of the challenges with doing live streams. You are slave to the internet provider's signal strength. But that's all right. CHČCK will catch up in a moment. Now, one of the places it's a little bit hard to see, but is a staple of this community, let's see if I can zoom in on it down here, is the Homestead Ice Cream Building. That's actually been featured as a must-go-to location from a culinary perspective. So if you're here, Homestead Ice Cream, 2 blocks off Broadway. It's a place to put on your go-to list. A little bit of cool ice cream on a hot, in this case, warm spring day. We're just 2 blocks, not even a block and a half, 2 blocks down from now from Victoria Street Bridge. I hope you've been enjoying our walkabout. As we get closer to it, Victoria Street Bridge that I mentioned was a traffic bridge. It's a very narrow traffic bridge, I might add. Back in 1907, it was opened. It was closed in 2010 for safety concerns. Torn down in 2016, and when I say torn down quite dramatically. It was actually, explosives were used with all sorts of people there to view it as they blew parts of the bridge up. Can you imagine? In the middle of the city? To take it down and then rebuilt it. And again, it was opened in the fall of 2018. It's similar to the old one, but slightly wider and slightly taller, which is great. So high schools in the area, Nutana High School, and other students there, so we can't really do much filming on it. But that's again just that grand architecture. The columns in front. It's beautiful. Now we're heading downhill to the riverbank. I took my driver's training when I lived in Saskatoon as a high school student. Speaking of high schools, and part of the training was that or the test was that you had to drive over the Victoria Street Bridge. Very narrow bridge that it was back in my day. I remember being incredibly nervous of doing that because I was going to end up hitting one of the sides or another car or something. So the fact that in this rebuilt bridge, being taller and wider, makes it easier for those who are doing the testing to have to go over it. I can't wait to get down by the Victoria Street Bridge here, walk you out onto it, and give you a view of the river. So if you're wondering why you're sticking around, that's the reason. It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful view of the Broadway Street Bridge, which is in the distance there. One of the reasons I mentioned earlier that one of the nicknames that Saskatoon has is the Paris of the Prairies, and part of that comes from all of the bridges. I believe there's 9, if I'm not mistaken, traffic bridges in the city, and up to 24 pedestrian crossings over the river for individuals. Like I said, it's a great place for walking. Back and forth. It is a stunning, beautiful day here. 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit, blue sky, a little bit of wind. Last week was incredibly windy. You can see in the distance just the edge of the downtown core of the Ramey Art Gallery. I actually met very briefly the lady who that art gallery is named after, Miss Ramey, on Thursday last week. It's an art gallery now that's got 2 big Picasso showings in it, as well as other art features, and it's free. Miss Ramey gave a donation in 2022, I believe it was, of $20 million, so that it would be free to attend for anybody who wanted for the next 20 years. Put that on your list if you come to the city. So you're looking out at the Broadway Bridge. Beyond that is the University Drive Bridge over the South Saskatchewan River. And just up the corner here is where we started our tour. Just up there by that building. Tennis courts there on the water's edge. Now, this isn't a river that you'd want to go swimming in. It's a river that's got a fairly significant current to it. non-windy day for a little paddleboard or kayak or row. It's the perfect spot. We'll just sit here for just a moment, and I'll say thank you once again for joining me. And again, if you're not part of the community here, please feel free to subscribe. And if you liked what you saw today, you can head over to Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description and leave a tip. And I'll get you on the email list to let you know about all the new tours that are happening. I'm going to be doing another tour this weekend from Vancouver Island. There's 2 other ones from the city of Saskatoon that I've left there on the live tour list. And that's something you'll have to check out when you get the chance. It's the Bessborough Hotel in the background. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our walkabout. Spread the word, let others know it's here, and it was so good to be with you guys. Thanks again for hanging out with me. I'm going to turn around so that the water's in my back. Thanks again for being with me.